Welcome to lesson 6. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at what self-awareness does. One of it, which is self-awareness puts you in control. You see, your thoughts, your emotions, beliefs, they actually shape your life. And self-awareness helps you to notice the faulty beliefs and habits and gives you the power to make some healthy changes. In life generally, when we have choices, it puts us in a more powerful position to then be able to make options of which choice to make, which in the long run gives us a different result, a desirable result. But let me just give you two illustrations just to explain what self-awareness does in terms of putting you in control. Think about somebody flying a plane who has never sat in a cockpit before, and he's trying to take on this aircraft and fly this plane. Think about the stress, the fear, the danger, the hazard, the likely accident, the possible death, both on the pilot, the supposed pilot who's trying to fly the plane, the entire crew, and perhaps the passengers there. That's what happens when you are not self-aware and you're going out there in the world. Think about the kind of a danger you're posing on both yourself and those around you. I'll break it down a bit further. Now, think about somebody who gets and holds onto the stern of a ship, tries to sail the ship or the boat, and he's never done that before. And he's got some people on board. Look at the danger that poses on that individual's life. Because the person doesn't even know how to read the map. He doesn't know how to read all the different signs he sees on the dashboard or on the screen. When he sees the storm, he doesn't know what to do. He sees something that looks gray, silverish kind of. He doesn't know whether it is ice. He doesn't know how deep it is. He doesn't know how to meander. He doesn't have a clue about anything. Or look at somebody who sits behind the wheel. He wants to drive a car, a manual or an automatic car. He's never driven all his life, and he's got his family in the car. And he says, I want to drive by faith. I've thought about it. I've imagined it. I want to drive. Look at the danger that person poses on himself, on those on board the car, and then the pedestrians, the other cars that are driving on the road. Look at the possible accident, the casualty, the potential damage, and even death that could cause. That's what happens to you as an individual. That's why when you go through life, you go through your day, you find out some things like accidents, casualties, regret, and you're wondering, if I knew, I wouldn't have said that. How I wish I didn't do that. And that's what self-awareness does. It puts you in control of situations. For example, a driver sees this car, aside from going beyond the driving limit, a driver is going and he sees this car is moving too fast for this road. For example, in the UK, there are some roads that are kind of a snake road, where the drive limit is 60 miles an hour. But and it's raining, it's wet, or it's even snowy, it's icy. I can't drive 60 miles an hour on this road. That's going to be death. And then you know when to slow down when you're approaching a curve, when you're approaching a hill. You know when to curve. You can read the road signs. I know when to overtake and when not to. You know what distance to give. That's self-awareness. And of course, a country like Nigeria, when you come to the UK, you need to undergo driving lessons all over again. And there are those who have been driving for 10 years. They go through driving lessons and go through the test and they fail 3 times, 4 times, 7 times. And they've been driving for 10 years. That's what happens. Because you need to learn the road maps, the road markings, the speed limits, the road signs, and all of the rest. The kind of the kind of crossings there are, the pelican, the pedestrian, the zebra, and all of that. What I'm saying by all of that is when you are aware, you know when to stop, you know when to slow, you know when to run, you know when to turn, and all of that. That's what self-awareness does. It puts you in control of your life. You know when to speak, when not to speak. It doesn't mean you're a coward. It doesn't mean you're a fool. But then you just have that self-control. You're driving and then somebody just comes behind you, zooms up, overtakes you. It does not mean you're not a good driver. Just that you're self-aware. The road is slippery. It's icy. If I run, I could skid and that will cause an accident. So that's what self-awareness does. Now, let me explain that with my definition of emotional intelligence. This is my definition of emotional intelligence. I see it as the intelligence of knowing yourself and knowing others. Knowing yourself, it is the wisdom of knowing yourself, which includes your weaknesses, your strengths, abilities, inabilities, tendencies, propensities, triggers, and then knowing how to manage and control them. And then it is also the wisdom of knowing other people's abilities, inabilities, weaknesses, strengths, tendencies, triggers, and all that, and knowing how to manage them. Take note of the difference in these two definitions. The first one, which is about yourself, knowing how to manage and control. The other one, knowing how to manage. You can't control people. Even your pets, there's so much you can do. Kids, there's so much you can do. Now, let alone an adult. We can only manage them. And that helps you to know, what is my trigger point? What is that point that I can't take it anymore? And what do I do when I get to that point? Do I walk away? Do I keep quiet? People might think you're a non-entity, you're not smart, you're dumb. Somebody's talking to you and you can't talk back at them. And you know yourself. If I talk, I'm going to regret what I'm going to say. If I act, I'm going to regret it. There are some people, they've never hit anybody all their lives, but they know they have a tendency of stabbing somebody when they are at the height of their anger. That's emotional intelligence. You know, before it gets to that point when you lose it, you either walk away or you do something else just to take your mind away from that situation. That is self-awareness, putting yourself under control. As I wrap this session up, haven't there been marriages that have been ruined? Business relationship destroyed. And then there have been wars from one country to another, resulting into killing thousands, if not millions of lives, displacing lots of people, destroying properties, because of this singular subject on lack of emotional intelligence by one person, one leader, who loses it and gives a command, gives an order, and then results into regrettable results. We have an assignment you're going to be taking very quickly, and then an exercise as well. Kindly do them, reflect, journal, and I look forward to catching up with you in the next lesson. Go well.